Anthony Hosea is an interesting man because he wrote a book, and that alone makes you interesting. But it's about his journey, I would say, and his path with God, and I always find that very fascinating because everybody's journey is different, but we're all trying to get to the same place, which I find very fascinating. And he's nice enough to join us for a conversation about the book and about him. Thanks for joining us, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Hey, Tony, no problem. I'm glad to be on your show.
Oh, no problem, man. Now, the first part of the book, you talk about growing up in the church in North St. Louis as a child, and you were at church all day until after midnight. Now, how old a child were you?
Oh, man, we were somewhere like maybe 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. You know, church was my mom's favorite pastime on Sundays and Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, she would drag us off to church at 10 o'clock in the morning, and after church, the pastor, he would have lunch ready. Then we would go into evening service, and evening service would go into mid the service, and the altar call sometimes wouldn't begin until midnight.
Now, you said the best part of the whole thing, the only good part, was these two sisters who could sing like birds.
Yes, the pastor had two twin sisters, and we all were the same age, but they had voices on them that was unbelievable, and they would capture the audience, and it was nice.
Okay, so that was the best. Were they cute too?
Yeah, plus they was cute.
So, in the second part of the book, you talk about your uncle building his first church in Kinloch. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was an experience. My uncle, he went to Tulsa, Oklahoma for the ministry, and he sold everything he had. And when he came back, he said God had told him to teach the people how to live by faith. None of us knew anything about living by faith, you know. So he bought a old tavern on Booker and Martin Luther King,
Mm-hmm.
and he built that church up. He tore down all of the walls, even all of the drunks had come to help him.
Oh, is that right?
Uh-huh. And when he got done, he built that church, and the people just came in, and we saw miracles happen. We saw people's lives change. And he started talking about faith. And I remember the other pastors used to poke fun of him, you know, and I really didn't know what was going on, but I was just doing like everybody else. You know, they was like naming and grabbing and giving, and people was buying SUVs and houses. That was one of the best times in my mother's life.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, you know, things started changing.
Well, you talk about in the book about how bad you felt because you had heard about all the faith preaching and somehow you couldn't get it to work for you. You go on to say that you did everything you could to get God to bless you with money to the point of trying to hit the Powerball in the name of the Lord.
Yes, that's right, Tony. You know, Tony, after growing up and you hearing so much, and I think what happened was after that movement had passed, and I started to see people that went to church all of the time, and yet was broke. You know, their husband was leaving, and these were some of my friends that I grew up with. Their parents and like my mother went to church, but yet all of a sudden everything just disappeared.
Right.
So when I got of age, you know, I wanted something more in life, and I started to just go back through my heart and search all of the things that I learned coming up as a kid, and I just couldn't shake the religion part of my life. So I said, I want some of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I even went to the point where I start preaching a little bit,
Really?
you know, and nothing was happening for me. No matter what I did, you know, I gave and I gave. I mimicked everything that I was taught. But in the end, nothing never worked.
Why do
You
you think?
know,
Why do you think that was, Anthony?
I think because it was a lack of understanding of who Jesus really were. You know, I was so focused on getting things that the whole God concept, I got lost in it. You know, and one day I just told my wife, I said, look at here, I'm going to do everything I can that's required of me. I'm going to see who's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Either the Bible is not lying or the people not lying. I'm going to find out.
Right.
So I started working these principles. And the more I started working these principles, the harder things got for me. So then I ran across this one preacher. He said that God told him to give his way out of poverty. And that's what I had started doing. I had started giving my way out of poverty.
What does that mean, Anthony? What does that mean?
Every dime I had, I was sowing it to God. Even it means that I was doing without things in my own home.
Well, do you think that's something God wanted you to do? I mean, he don't want you to do without basic necessities, does he?
No, he does not. So
was that a mistake?
Yeah, that was a mistake because what I was trying to do was buy my blessing instead of being a blessing.
Okay, well, all right. Now, before we go further, now tell me the name of the book.
The name of the book is called Faith. And how I derived of that name was, go ahead.
No, that was going to be my question. How did you come with that name?
I ran into a prophet. This was a true prophet. I had never met a true prophet in my life besides my pastor on the outside of him. And we were sitting in church one night, and he had a line going, and he said, the Lord want me to talk to Tony. Now, my name is Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my wife knew who he was talking about, but I silently said a prayer. I said, God, if you talking to me, let him call me by the name my mama gave me. About 2 minutes later, the prophet came around the church, sat down beside me, and he said these words, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I want to talk to Anthony. That's when I knew that God had heard me. And that's when I wrote this book called Faith. And in this book, it talks about my feelings, because somehow people are afraid to say what's really in their heart. As Christians, we somehow think we're supposed to say everything is all right every day, and it's not. We have fears, we have doubts, we have questions, we even have great disbelief, believe it or not, and we do things that we should not do. Because I've done it.
I heard that. Anthony Hosea is with us. His book is called Faith. Now, in the book, you talk about the devil showing up in the hallway and spoke to you and told you you were wasting your time praying to the Lord. Now, when I read that, I was like, well, what did he look like? Or was it a spirit? Was it an actual person? Was it just did you hear a voice? Tell me about this encounter with the devil.
You know, Tony, during that time, I was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning praying, because I had did some research about what goes on in the spirit realm at 3 o'clock, between 3 and 6 a.m. And that is the busiest time in the realm. That's the time when God is giving his orders for the day to his people, and that's the time when satanic things is happening between 3 and 6. And I got up one morning to use the restroom. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was headed to the bathroom, and when I got to the bathroom door, the house was dark, and I heard this voice say, "You're wasting your time praying." And I kind of smirked when I heard that, and I just knew it was the devil. And I just said, okay, I'm wasting my time, then when I'm going to just keep on praying, because I must be doing something right. It didn't shake me. It didn't scare me. I guess because of all the praying and investigations I've been doing, I kind of expected him to show up, but I didn't know when. So when he showed up, I was kind of ready for him.
Well, but wait a minute, Anthony. I mean, so you're telling me you were not shaken, you were not intimidated, but you're telling me you were going to the bathroom and it was like the middle of the night, between 3 and 6 in the morning, but the devil was in your house.
Yeah, he was in my house. See, the
That
devil.
would have shaken me up to know that the devil is inside my walls, my domain, where my family lays their head, where we come together and have dinner every night, where we talk about things and our goals and what God has planned for us. The devil made his way into my house. That would have freaked me out.
Well, Tony, the reason why it didn't bother me is because I was aware. The Bible says that Satan, he comes to kill, steal, and destroy and generate fear. So since I already had that information, and when he came, and I already knew that I was under the protection of Jesus Christ, that there's nothing he can do to me. See, I understand this. Satan don't want my cars. He don't want my house. He don't want my money. He don't want nothing I got. He's not even mad with me. He's angry with God. This fight is between the devil and God. We're just caught in the middle. The best way to hurt God is to pick on what he made, and that's his people. And I understand that. But I didn't understand that years ago. But now that I've been and I've had a relationship with God, I understand that.
Your mother must be smiling, uh, because you said early in the interview that your mother, she loved everything about church and everything about God. And here, I don't know how many years. Is your mom still alive?
Yes, my mother, she's still alive.
So
She's 75 years old.
she must smile because you, from where you were to where you are.
Right. She is extremely proud of me. Tony, the first part of my life, I spent over 15 years of my life doing drugs and alcohol. I was no good even to myself.
Well, what
I
put you
was
on that path? What got you? You grew up in the church, so what put you on a path of drugs and alcohol?
women. See, I had two goals in life as a teenager. That was to get me a car and get me a girlfriend. But I knew in order to get either one of those, I had to get me a job. So when I got me a job, I got me a girlfriend, I got me a car, then I started experimenting with other things. And that took me off track. But my mother never stopped praying for me. Tony, even as a grown man, being 52 years old, even today when I go to my mother with a problem, the first thing she asks me, did you pray about it?
Mm.
That's the first thing. And she has always instilled prayer in all of her children.
And she was still telling you these things when you were getting involved with alcohol and drugs. Your mother, when you would go see her, maybe sometimes you were drunk or on drugs when you saw her, she would still tell you to pray. She didn't give up or anything.
She never gave up, not one time.
Man.
She didn't give in. The best gift that she gave me, and I like to tell this story because people don't understand how my mother can do that being a Christian. When she got fed up, and when I no longer chose to listen to her, she put me in her car. She dropped me off down on Washington at the Salvation Army and pulled off and did not look back. I said to myself, I either had to grow up or become a man because I couldn't live on the street. I did not know how.
How
And
old were you?
oh man, I was about 29 years old.
You were 29. You didn't know how to live
29.
you didn't know how to be a man?
No, I did not because I've always been at home with my mother. Always. She's always took care of us. She's always gave us that home. Long as we did what she said, we had a home to stay with.
So out of all the things your mother has told you and done for you, that was probably the best thing she ever did, was drop you off the Salvation Army at age 29, in essence telling you, you know what? You need to figure it out.
And that's what I did. And Tony, to this day, I have a key to her house. To this day, she smiles when she sees me. Whenever I do anything big, she just brags about me. And when I wrote this book, she was just so excited.
Mm-hmm.
She made me so excited that I wrote more books.
I heard that. Now let me ask you, can we go back to the devil thing?
Yeah.
I'm not so much curious about him, but I'm curious about the voice. Did the voice remind you of anybody else's voice? Like, was it the voice of the most evil person you had ever met in your life? Was it did you hear a voice, or did you see words?
I heard a voice.
And what did that voice sound like?
It was a subtle voice. It wasn't like the voice of my conscience. It was like a voice on the outside, but yet I can hear it on the inside of me through my earlobes. Now, the Bible says that God said that his people, his sheep, knows his voice, and they will not follow another. So that right there just lets you know there's many voices. And once you learn those voices and you learn the voice of God, you can recognize when there's a voice that's unfamiliar.
Okay. See, we're talking with Anthony Hosea, who has a book out that just came out this month, and it's called Faith. Now, I pray a lot. Now, I haven't been praying a lot all my life, just maybe in the last 5 years or so that I had a spiritual awakening, and I'm still learning and I'm still on my journey. But I don't think I've ever had God talk to me where I hear a voice. Now, I've woken up in the morning with a thought in my head that I didn't have when I went to bed the night before. And it felt like it was something he was telling me, but I didn't hear a voice. Am I missing something?
No, Tony, we grow. And that's something that most of us fail to do. We grow. There are people that have been in church 40, 50 years, still has not recognized the voice of God. God speaks to us every day. He speaks to us through dreams. He speaks to us audibly. He speaks to us through his word. The most common way he speaks to us is through another human being, because he does nothing apart from another human being, because we are human. Matter of fact, Tony, God needs us in the earth. We are his eyes, we are his ears, we are his hands, and we are his feet.
Does God put us here to see? I get into these debates a lot of times with people about different things, morality, homosexuality, things like that. But to me, it's like, okay, I understand what it says in the Bible about homosexuality, but I also know that in the Bible, God tells us to put the sins of man on him and for us to love each other, and he will take care of the sins. Now, am I misinterpreting something there?
No, you hit it right on the head. You know, Jesus said if he be lifted up, he'll draw the people to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we ought to love one another. That's it. Bible say, oh, no man none but love.
Mm-hmm.
And how we love people is by doing what the Bible says. Jesus' whole ministry, the whole time he was on earth, he was going around doing good. He fed the hungry, he healed the sick. And even with the prostitute, he didn't judge them. He just said, go and sin not.
Mm-hmm.
Sin no more.
Why do you think some of us choose parts of the Bible to follow and not others?
Well, Tony, that is because we do not want to live holy. We pick what's best for us. We use that to manipulate others, to manipulate our way through life. That's why.
Do you find you yourself personally? Because I could tell you, I've told my story so many times. You probably heard it somewhere, but do you feel from where you were, like say when you were involved with alcohol and drugs and women and all that kind of stuff like that, to where you are now? Is there? Because I have never seen you until today. Is there a sense? I mean, you look peaceful. Are you at peace with everything that's happened in your life and where you're going from this point forward?
Yes, Tony, I am very much in peace. You know, when you have been bound by that alcohol and those drugs and your life hanging in the balance, and when you get free from that and you no longer choose to do that, you do everything you can to obtain that peace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been clean and sober 20 years, April 15th of this year.
Well, congratulations, man.
Thank you. I haven't found no excuse good enough to go back.
Mm-hmm.
I like the path that I'm on now. You know, I got some buddies that say, well, at least I can go buy a cup of coffee. You know, and that means a lot. When you realize how much freedom means to you, you're not going to bound yourself up again like that. And Tony, I made myself a promise. When God set me free in 1995 in Detroit, I made myself a promise, two things, that I was never going to be hungry no more, and I wasn't going to never use. And I meant that.
And so you stopped cold turkey just like that.
I stopped cold turkey, did not have not one withdrawal.
Wow. Wow.
Because
Wow.
I wanted it. And I wanted the peace of God in my life. And that's why I wrote this book called Faith, because it takes faith to do everything that we do every day. Even when we put our shoes on, it takes faith.
Now,
And
you talk about in the book, when we talked about it earlier, but I wanted to go back to the part about your uncle building his first church in Kinloch. There was an old tavern, as you said. But you say the other pastors didn't understand the concept of walking by faith. How is it that a pastor cannot understand something like that?
well, Tony, from watching my uncle and even in my own personal life, there are just certain things that we just was not taught. Even when God calls a man to the ministry, that man has to be taught by other men. And during that era, that time, that was not taught. All they knew is put a dollar in the basket. Whatever God has for you is for you, and that's not so. It's a scripture that they use at funerals. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh. No, God said he comes that we have life, and have life more abundantly. See, we have a choice. Even back in the garden, with Adam and Eve, I always tell people that if Adam had never bit the apple, we would live forever. When Eve bit the apple, nothing happened. God gave commandments to man. That's a whole nother story, but I had to go there, because it's certain things, just like health, okay? High blood pressure, it kills a lot of people, black, white, Mexican, whoever. It's a silent killer.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we're not taught. We're taught after the fact. We're never taught before the fact. So when you get something, it's hard to get rid of. And that's what it is about the faith walk. They just was not taught. Back then, the Baptists, good people, the Catholic, good people, Charismatic was good people, but everybody was dying. They lived old, but they was dying, on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have any life. Faith brings life. Faith brings peace. Faith brings possibilities. Back then, they didn't have no possibilities. That's why there were so many drunks on the corner, because they was not taught about faith. They wasn't taught about life. And
right.
That's what we're missing now.
Because we got away from that.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, the book by Anthony Hosea is called Faith. I'll put a link in the show notes about it if you want to order a copy of it. It's not a long read, but it's a very interesting read, and it would do you some good to pick up something like this from a man's perspective about his walk from early on to involvement with drugs and alcohol, to his mom dropping him off at the Salvation Army at age 29, telling him, "You got to figure it out." So his walk has been long, but he is one with God, and he lives a peaceful life, and I'm happy for him. And Anthony, I appreciate you talking with me, man. I really do.
Hey, Tony, I appreciate it. And I would like to leave on this note. It is impossible. It is very impossible to please God. He that comes to God must believe, and God is a rewarder to them that diligently seek him. God bless you, Tony.
That's Anthony Hosea, and like I said, the show notes will include a link to buy the book. So appreciate it, man.